Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast, episode 43. For those of you scoring at home, I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And who do we got today? 43, Ron. Who's that going to be?
Isn't that Marty Byron?
Is that Michael Jordan?
No, he was 45 with the Wizards.
Oh.
It was 23 and 45.
43 is kind of an odd number.
It is an odd number. Well, it is. Technically, you're right. It's an odd number, and I believe it's a prime number, too.
What? Now you got to get all technical here at the start of the show. It's just...
And today's math lesson has been brought to you by DigitalTodice.com, the best darn podcast on the web.
Ways to get a hold of us, DigitalTodice.com. As you said, that's where we park all of our podcasts on Spreaker. 978-751-DICE is our text line, 978-751-3423 if you want to get a hold of us. And our absolutely growing group on Facebook.
318!
Did we get over 300? Holy smokes.
Oh, yeah. I'm like doing 2 or 3 a day.
Nice. Yeah, over there, facebook.com/groups/digital-to-dice is where you can find us. And that group's growing, and everyone's posting their projects and games, and everyone's finding new games to play because people are posting things and posting pictures of them playing the games. And we got some really good, cool setups of people playing games now. So, yeah, the Facebook group is growing and growing nicely. So thanks, everybody that joined that and has posted on there. All right, today in our main segment, I always forget to do this. I always get excited to do the show. We jump into things that we always forget to say what we're talking about. Today we're going to be talking about, what is the topic today, Ron?
How do you learn a new game?
Yeah, because I've been playing some new games, and Ron's been playing some new games as well, and I know a lot of you have too. So, and some people were asking about, they had questions about games and this and that. So we thought we'd talk today about how does everybody learn how to play a new game? And we have some good ideas and some suggestions from listeners that they gave to us too. So we'll talk about that in our main segment. But all right, here we go.
No, Aunt Beck, you can't go out and chase the truck again.
The truck again? What?
It's a delivery truck or the ding dong cart or what? Just, you can't go out and chase it. Just do your week and get it over with.
Do your week. Oh, man. Anyway, so we'll kick off the show with what we're playing. A couple different things for me. I did a couple of videos wrapping up my Strat baseball project, the 1980 World Series. That was fantastic. And then I also did a 1969-70 shootout hockey. I did the Bruins St. Louis Blues replay, the Bobby Orr series. Holy cow. That was nuts, Ron. That was nuts. Bruins went up 3-1. In Game 5, they were going to close it out, right? They're up 3 goals in the third period. 3 goals in the third period to win the cup. They couldn't hang on, and they lost in overtime. St. Louis...
Did Jerry Cheevers get into the champagne early? Or?
I don't know. So St. Louis ended up forcing a 7-game series. So we went back to St. Louis a Game 7. St. Louis, Red Berenson gets 2 goals in the first period. I'm like, wow, is Boston really going to collapse, like this? This is bad. And Bruins came back, and they got a couple of goals in the third period to finally win it. Ace Bailey had one of them, and I forget who had the other one. It wasn't like Esposito or somebody. It was somebody like regular that just come up with it. It would have been cool if it was Orr, but it wasn't. So the Bruins, 3-2, they won Game 7 and took the shootout series 4 Games 3. Fun series. I did a video recap and everything there, so that was really fun. So I did the shootout hockey, the Stratomatic baseball. I started to play Stratomatic baseball advanced. I set the cards on the table. I flipped them over, and it was slow go because it was a few different things, few different wrinkles. Right. But honestly, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm not sure why that I thought it was going to be this big thing, but it really wasn't too bad. A couple little things to keep track of. A couple extra, stats like the arm of the thrower and stuff like that. But there's some things I do like. I like when I was reading the directions. I liked that if you're on second base and there's a fly ball hit to right, and the guy obviously catches the fly ball, you can tag. There's a certain symbol that says you can tag the third But if you roll the dice and the throw comes in, the guy can hold, so he's not automatically out. I thought that was kind of cool because you can maybe take off and you see the throw coming, and you're like, whoa, 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 I'm going to back off, There is still, I think if you roll a 20, you're out, but I think there's really no harm, no foul in trying for third base, and if you don't make it, you're just not out. So I thought that was really cool. So I'm kind of
really cool.
Yeah, there's a few things I am liking about the advanced that. Basic is fine. I love the basic. I really do. But it does a couple different things for me, and so I do like that. I've been playing the advanced and having some fun. But then to go the other way with shootout hockey, I kind of developed an express play or a basic play for shootout hockey. Mm-hmm. And so what I decided to do is I got the greatest teams of the past set 2. I have 1 and 2. I think there's 27 teams in the first greatest teams, and there's 19 in the second one. So I took the greatest teams of the past set number 2. I took those 19 teams, and I'm doing a one-off series. One and done is what I did. I had one play-in game because it was a 19 team. So 2 teams played. I eliminated 1. Now I had 18 teams left, whatever. But I didn't want to have to go through the rigmarole of keeping all the stats. That's 18 or 19 games. I'd have to keep all the stats. And for me, I just wanted to kind of see what team would win it.
Yeah.
So I developed a way of playing shootout hockey where you just you don't keep stats. You just roll for scoring chances and penalties. And then you want to see if there is a goal or a penalty on the play, and it doesn't matter who it is. So you roll the dice. If it's a scoring chance, where was the shot taken? Is it a goal? And that's basically how it went. And is there a penalty? Yes or no? Okay, fine. We have a power play. So I didn't keep any stats at all, and I got the games playing between 7 and 8 minutes.
That's fast.
It is. So it's almost like regular season basketball where you can roll just for scores, and you don't have to keep the stats if you don't want to. So that's what I'm doing here is I'm rolling just for scores using the shootout engine, but I don't need to have any statistics. I might do it for the finals. For the final game, I might keep a box score the whole bit like that. But it's been kind of fun just playing these games 7-8 minutes long, and I've already played about 10 or 11 games, and I've eliminated a bunch of teams. I'm into round 2 right now, and we'll see who comes out on top. And it's a fun way, just kicking back and having a nice simple game to play.
Yeah, and you like that. So
yeah, I tried to play the APA hockey, and I don't know if I talked about this last week of the show or not. I don't know, but
kind of dovetails into the topic. But.
Yeah, exactly, and that's probably why we talked about it, because I got stuck. I went in cold on purpose. I had the book in front of me, and I was reading the book, and I've seen some videos on it, but I was like, let me see if I can do this just with the book and not rely on anybody else. Nope. I had maybe I just didn't pick up on it. Maybe it's just such a different game that it didn't register with me. But I had no idea where to look for anything on the card. It didn't spell it out well enough for me. And sometimes on a brand new game, you need it to spell out. And so when it said, check this, when I looked at the card, I didn't see that on there. If it says physical rating, I didn't see a physical rating on the card. If there, it's probably there, but I just don't know where to look. And the instructions, at least to the best of my knowledge, did not tell me where to look. So that was my issue with that. So I didn't even get the first play of the game playing Apple Hockey. So I put it away, and some people are going to help me out with that, and that's what we'll get into our topic as far as how do you learn the game. But it didn't go well. I'll just say right off the bat, it did not go well at all trying to play the Apple Hockey. So I'm not giving up on it, just like I didn't give up on Hockey Blast. Right. But so I'm gonna need some help with that. I really am. And speaking of Hockey Blast, I had that flowing. I had the Hockey Blast flowing.
So you went to do a video,
and then I set up the iPad. I said, okay, I'm gonna do a little video here, and it just went to heck.
Uncle Charlie and his Murphy's Law.
I was playing so many games, and I got through games without an issue and had fun. And then it just seemed like everything I rolled, I had to stop and try to figure out. And very few things went smooth for me in that game. And maybe because I was so focused on not making a mistake that I was second-guessing myself.
Because that happens.
That's what you do when you're making a video. Because I know the video I posted was my 4th try. And it was just one period. And the other 3 I had screwed up. And maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe, I don't know. But that game just keeps tripping me up. And it's like, as soon as I think I got it down and I'm playing and I'm having fun, something comes up and I got to stop. And it's a 5 or 10 minute slog through the rule book or the internet to find out what to do. And it's just such a love-hate relationship. Because when that game flows, I'm having fun with it. But
Good.
boy, when that's like traffic. You're doing 65 on a highway and you come to a grinding halt. And it just, you sit there just banging on the steering wheel like, what's going on here? So that's what's going on with that game. So I'm still wrestling with that, so to speak. So what have you been playing?
Well, the 78 baseball replay has now reached the 1st of August.
Oh, wow.
So we're down to the nitty-gritty, the last 2 months of the season. The Red Sox are long gone. There will be no collapse for Boston. They just never woke up.
Oh, okay.
But the last 2 games I did Texas and New York today, and I did Pittsburgh and the Dodgers yesterday, so Thursday and Friday respectively. And the Pittsburgh-Dodger game went 14 innings, and the Texas-New York game went 12.
Oh, so you almost played like
bonus for baseball for both. And so that was the Thursday game was the last Dodger Pirate game of the year. They played each other 12 times back then and against the other division. And Pittsburgh won all 12. Now that's kind of
12-0
rare. They went 12-0 against the first place Dodgers.
Wow.
Yeah.
How often do you think that in real life does a team ever go 12-0?
That would have ever happened, or very, very rarely. I remember.
Now where do you find that in action, PC? How would I find how they did against a team?
There is actually if you go into the reports on the game screen, there is game or head-to-head results.
Okay.
And so that's how someone showed me that this week, as a matter of fact.
That's kind of cool. Yeah,
it is kind of cool. I think in 1988 in real life, the Mets and Dodgers played in the National League Championship Series, and the Mets were supposed to wallop them because they'd beaten them 10 out of 12 times or something ungodly like that. The Dodgers won 7. So it is possible, but the Dodgers record, if you took Pittsburgh out of the equation, is 62-30. I mean, that's just so unreal that the Dodgers would do that, but that's why they played the game. So that was pretty cool. I had a football game on Sunday. Was it Sunday? Yeah, it was. I did the 83 Raiders and Redskins, and not Super Bowl 18. I got the game number wrong. And Raiders got out to a big lead, and the Redskins furiously came back in the fourth, and you had shut it off at that point and fell 2 points short.
Oh.
But so the streaming went well. Off stream, I did. I played around with Roberto Savini's Daring Drivers.
Okay.
Did the 1992 Indianapolis 500, which at that point I think was the closest 500-mile race in any sport. It was decided by 43 1,000th of a second.
Isn't that nuts? You race all day for that.
You race 3.5 hours, and the cars are separated by lug nuts on a wheel.
Yep. You come out of the pit, some guy farts, and that's it.
That's it. It's exactly it. And so in real life, it was Al Unser and Scott Goodyear, who, by the way, qualified 33rd that year. He was the last driver on the grid. And over that particular race was a war of attrition. There were 8 cautions. And so Goodyear kept surviving and surviving and surviving. And so by the time they got to that last restart, it's a great race. It was a great race. A friend of mine and I came to my folks' house to watch it with me, and he was quite hungover. But in the simulator race, Goodyear crashed out in the first segment.
Oh, that's too bad.
It's like, but little Al held off Michael Andretti at the end. So I did a couple of mods, or I did a mod with that one. Because in oval racing, such as Indy, Daytona, all the NASCAR stuff, if you have an accident, you all get bunched back together. And so it's impossible to sit there and run away and hide from other drivers like you can in a Formula One race, because they don't bunch the field back together. So I put in a home mod, that for the first 4 segments for a race, the first one that there was an accident, I would throw in a new segment with a yellow. And so I'd regroup all the cars and then go back to the actual racing thing. It doesn't add any time. You're just making sure that however many cars you want to put in the same group or row or whatever, that they're all there. Mm-hmm. So that's how you can have a 30th place driver qualify, contend at the end, because if you didn't do it that way, they would never have a chance. And so I ended up having 3 of those segments because I had a massive collection accident or what have you. And so I got the super close ending. I had to go to the Killer Instinct rules, and it worked. And which was cool. And I would certainly play around with that again. Now, today, Friday, the 5th of June, I played around with the speed skating game. And I did one little mod thing. It's like the track and field and other games. It breaks the race down into segments, and you roll based on the chart and record and all that. I did something a little different. Roberto's always going to go, oh, my God, would you just play the game the way I put it out of the box, Ronnie? Would you please? Would you please? No, I'm not. He had rolled the segments, and then at the end of that, take 2 6-sided die if one of different colors. If the one color die is odd, you subtract the other die's time, and if it's even, you add.
Okay.
Which I thought was very clever. What I did was, if it was odd, I used a 10-sided die because I have my ball roller set up with a 10-sided die. I subtracted that time per segment, or added that time per segment up to 1/10 of a second. The problem is that what he based for an average was so fast that the winner of the race broke the Olympic record by 6 seconds and the world record by 4.5 over a 1,500-meter race. It's clever. It was awesome. I mean, I can't imagine the excitement in Keith Jackson's voice in that one. But no, not 4.5. You obviously want to make sure that it could happen, but not by... He had set the record that January in the preliminary of the Olympics. He's the one that had the record. You're not breaking that record by 4.5 seconds.
Yeah.
So again,
sometimes you got to play the games, and sometimes you come up with this anomaly like that. And you're like, how do I prevent that from happening?
Right, you know? And so it's a case of what I did is I set up all the races, and I just took the top 10 instead of everybody because then it would just take too long to do. And the only one that was below the average that he had figured was the 10th place skater. And I think the top 6 had broken the world record. It's like, oops, that's a little fast.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I was playing his game. It was, I don't know if it was Kill the Power Play or a version of that. And I did the 1920 Olympics or whatever the heck I did. And you remember...
they're usually pretty accurate.
Yeah, and you remember I did that one. It was USA and Switzerland.
Yeah.
And one of the teams I think Switzerland had a double letter. And it meant that you added all these goals together. And so when I played out that game, I rolled out USA versus, I think it was Switzerland, and it was 29-0. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? This is a hockey game, and it's 29-0. And it was 1920. Keep that in mind. And when I looked up the actual scores of the game, do you know what the score of that game was in real life?
Like 29-1, wasn't it?
29-0. I hit it spot on, and that was just ridiculous.
We did a whole show on that. I mean, it's great when you do it. And the first time I ran his 100-meter dash, I got the exact time too.
Yeah,
it wasn't the same runner, but it was 9:99. Like, bing, bing,
but
bing,
it's
bing,
just
bing, bing.
the games that designed. It's like holy. It's spot on. How can you argue that? So yeah, so that was a little odd that you had got some weird numbers there rolling. Maybe if you did it again, maybe you'd see something. Maybe you did something a little off, or maybe you just got crazy dice rolls. I mean, it can happen.
I think the table's a little too generous.
Okay.
Like I said, I wouldn't have had a problem if he set the world record. I wasn't looking for an exact, and I didn't know what the exact time was. But when you have 6 skaters break it, and then you're breaking it by 4.5 seconds. And so even if I didn't do that adjustment, you're still going to be breaking that record by 3 to 4 seconds. I mean, that's not even close.
Right. Well, check it out again. You go back in, try the mod there and the whole bit. It's fun when you add a little mod to a game and it either makes it more accurate or more fun. I love that.
He does a good job with the third dice in a lot of his games, and this one doesn't have it.
Oh, okay.
And so I just thought that would be, instead of doing the one modifier at the end, it's like, because what you don't want to do in a game is you just don't want the same rolls over and over and over again. You're just trying to, because it's technically a quick play game. I think I did the race in 15 minutes, which I know isn't really quick, but where I'm going with that. You just want to give it enough there that, okay, you threw it this way and you threw it just to add to it. And I love the idea of plus or minus, because you don't know when you roll. You can have any number from 2 to 12. No, actually, a 2 would always be odd. But you don't know if you're going to add to the time or subtract to the time until you see the roll.
Right.
Oh, and so that, for me, that made it interesting, because I really don't know the names except for Eric Hyden. He's a doctor, and so it just kind of gave it that little more of a variable without having to do any extra work. And so I didn't think that was the reason why everybody was doing better. But, we'll take a look at it, and maybe he'll hear it, and we can talk about it. Again, I love the concept of the game. I mean, where else are you going to play a speed skating game,
Yeah.
And it was cool. What I did, instead of racing everybody for the first segment and the second segment like you would in a track and field race or a car race, because it's a time trial anyway. I just did the 10 skaters one by one by one, so I knew what the other next person had to do and what times they were running.
I got to see if he has a hurling game, because I was watching hurling I was watching it on YouTube the other day, and it's so cool. You're dribbling the ball, you're catching the ball. It's like baseball and lacrosse and soccer and rugby all in one, and it looked really neat. And I've seen it before, so it's not a new sport by any means. But just when I saw that face, like, man, I remember watching it as a kid. Somehow it used to be on TV from time to time. Like
World of Sports.
Yeah, on a Saturday or Sunday, used to catch it once in a while on TV. It's like, boy, this is an interesting game. So
that's what I'm. Oh, and pinball.
I saw that. Yeah, you're playing a pinball. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you think? Should we get into the main segment?
Let's get into the meat and potatoes. And Becky, you're only there for a week. What do you mean you didn't pack enough underwear?
Can you bring your own underwear in there? I'm not sure if you can.
I don't know. You know what? I'm never going to do anything to find out on a first-hand basis either.
Yeah, let's hope we don't. So anyway. All right, so we're going to get into, how do you learn a new game? What are some of the ways? Some of this is obvious and some of it isn't. So I guess the first thing is probably YouTube, I would imagine, to see if somebody...
Now it is. When I started gaming way back in the 90s, way back in the olden days... Yes, Monty, I'll take door number 3. You either had someone show you, kind of the indirect way of YouTube, someone personally show you how to play the game, or if you were really daring and did a solo project, which we've talked about before, that just wasn't done, you just pull out the directions and read it. And now, obviously, in this day and age of social media and stuff, there's usually a YouTube video about how to play a game. I mean, obviously, yeah. Which is kind of interesting that we say that, because most of the Roberto Civini games don't have that. You've done some, I've done some, and others have done some. But so the old-fashioned way of sitting and reading the directions and just taking it in small enough steps until it makes sense.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up playing with other people back in the day. All right, hang on. All right. People back, and I got to play that back in the day, right?
I'll take door number 1.
I've never played the game of Clue correctly.
Really?
Because we would play as kids in 4th grade, right, in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to play, but we would all play and draw our cards, and then someone would go into a room, and I'm not giving up. Everyone would just start saying, I'm not giving up. And I mean, you wouldn't give up one of your cards for the Clue. And it was like, the last person to say I'm not giving up didn't have to give up. I was like, I don't think that's how it's played. And it's just
it's kind of like getting money when you land on free parking in Monopoly. I was in college when I realized, Ron, that doesn't really happen.
Yeah, so considered a mod or a homebrew, for Monopoly. But I remember playing Clue. It's like this can't be hard. I never liked it because I was always the last guy to say that because I didn't know the game. I'm like, well, should I say it now? Should I say I'm not giving up any clues now before the guy gets in the room? Would that cover me? I mean, so I learned from people, but I learned incorrectly. Okay, and right. I do remember that. So it's important that you found someone that knew how to play the game correctly is what I'm getting at. But, yeah, so the big thing, is in instructions and try to figure it out. It is great if somebody got a video. That works out really well. Because you can see it. Cards and dice is tough. The computer stuff is easy. The cards and dice, it's so hard.
Well, the computer will kind of, if the interface is good, and I'm not going to mention any names, if the interface is good, it kind of guides you in the right way to play it. If the interface is terrible, and we've talked about this before, we just kind of sit there at the screen and stare at it and go, huh?
Yeah, what do I do? Where do I go?
What do I do now?
Yeah.
And, okay, then you pull out the manual, and it's in the PDF form, and then, you have my setup. Okay, you can do 2 different screens, or you print it out and sit there and, goes to another topic that we did, how much work makes this worthwhile.
Yeah.
The cards and dice stuff, again, that's where good instructions make all the difference in the world. Plug for Glory Days Boxing. I'm the one that proofread his manual, and which I thought was a great idea. He had a lot of it right. We changed some commas around, trying to make sure that things were a little bit easier to explain. But you bought a game, and we won't talk about which one it was, that came with 3 different sets of instructions. And I remember you coming to me one night going, which one do I read? And I said, probably the one that's the most current. And there were things that had been changed in the game over the years, but not changed in the instructions. And so you were pulling my hair out by the time that was over, let alone yours, because what do I do here? It says to do X, and it's not possible to do X, and that sort of thing. So having clear and reasonably easy to read instructions just goes a long way.
Yeah, that is huge. What I really like, and I won't mention any games either, there are some games that do such a fantastic job. So in other words, you roll the dice or you flip a card. Here's what could potentially happen. It could be, if you see this, it means this. If you see this, it means this. If you see this, it means this. And they break down everything that could possibly happen on that flip or that roll. That is a huge deal because so many times a game will give you an example. Okay. If it's a XYZ, it's a ground ball, the first, and an error, right? Okay, it makes sense. But I mean, sometimes, but that's the only example they give. What if I get a ABC or a DEF or a FGH, whatever? It doesn't, So it gives you one example of what happens. Well, that's fine if you get that, but what happens if you get something else? So the games that spell out, here's what could happen, and we're going to go through every scenario. So in so many times I've gone back to the instructions. Okay, I forget what happens when I get this. What is this? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what this is.
And especially a game that is hugely chart-driven. I'm not even talking about APA here, which I don't want people, that's all chart. Well, yes, but APA is for most sports, is easy to learn. I'm not going to mention the game, but if you have something that when you pull the thing out of it and there's 30 charts in there, how do I know which chart to do? And when do I feel like I'm stopped taking my dancing lessons from Arthur Murray to actually dancing with what I'm supposed to be doing here?
Yeah.
And that can be, sometimes that can be really easy, and sometimes like, here's a rare play chart and blah, 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 blah.
I'd like to say that if the game can spell it out well enough, whereas it says, here's what could happen on this play or this roll, that is a huge thing. A lot of times they don't. It's almost like they know how to play the game, and they have a hard time explaining it to someone coming in
exactly,
cold.
because they designed it.
They designed it, so they know. Yeah, so they know all the
I know
intricacies.
how it works. What do you mean you don't know?
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard. So for me, for the instructions, they got to be labeled really well, and they need to be spelled out, giving example of pretty much everything that can happen within the game. And if your game is so deep that there's 100 different things that can happen, you might have to spell all those out.
And the other thing is, and I will mention both Strat and Napa by name here because they are old style companies, and that their initial customer base were teenage kids, teenage boys. I can't imagine there were too many girls around the block trying to figure out what Henry Aaron was going to do in 1958, but
Right.
who knows?
Yeah.
And a case of we got to put this into words and terminology that you can understand. And so their instructions for their basic games were basic. But now, in this golden age of sports sims, where the average age of the player is, well, I think you and I are maybe kind of on the young end of the spectrum at 48 and 53.
Yeah.
You could be a lot more technical about it because we have life experiences and all that, if that makes any sense at all. And I think it's probably harder today because there's only so many different ways you can dress a chicken, you know? And so my new game has to be different enough from your new game so it doesn't look like I stole it from you. And that. So,
So I think so. Instructions, obviously, you would think to be the first way. A lot of people go right to YouTube, and there's a lot of people that have requested from me and you, hey, can you do this game and do a video on this game? Yeah, we've done a few if you haven't. I'm not going to go out and buy all these games just to do a video on. I don't think that's fair to me or you to spend our money so someone else doesn't have to. Because
we're never going to play it again.
Yeah, but I mean, I like discovering new games and showing them off in a video if I enjoy them, especially if I enjoy them. But it is difficult though if you go to YouTube and sometimes you get a video and it's so hard to do cards and dice, and it's so hard to, especially when you're trying to explain it, because you're trying to be entertaining, but you're trying to explain it. More often than not, even no matter how well you know the game, you make mistakes.
And I think to do that, I think you kind of give up the persona of trying to be entertaining. Is look, let's go through this, let's see what the card looks like. And then go through.
And it's so hard to get the card to focus in on the camera sometimes, too. And I feel bad. So many people try to do it, and they're like pulling it in and pushing it out, and they're trying to get it to focus, and they just can't. And I feel so bad because it's...
Or they don't really know the game in and out and try to show it off. Or they try to do it in a live stream, and they get distracted by the chat. If I'm coming in and let's say I picked up Dave Gardner's hockey doodle. The game, which was the ultimate strategy, and you've taken the time to show, and someone in the community took the time to show it off, but they did it live, so they end up talking to the chat, talking about what they had for dessert. It's like, no, just show me how it is to play. The ideal thing would be, and I know that the folks at Play.com do this to some degree, would be that the game creator sits down and say, okay, if we're doing Dave Gardner's hockey doodle, that you, Dave Gardner, would show the basics of play, wait for questions to come in, and then you can say, no, here's how to do the penalty check. What? Yeah. A, B, and C.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I've been guilty of that too, because I remember getting a couple of games and I would learn it, thought I knew it, play a game, and went back. When I really looked, I was like, wow, yeah, no, that was wrong. How I did that was wrong. But it turned out that a couple of those games, the way I played it, I kept the rules for me that way. So I wasn't doing it right, but when I got done playing it, it flowed better for me to play it this way.
Right.
And I had some people that were like, this is wrong. You're supposed to do this first and this second and this third. And I was like, well, as long as you get everything in before the end of the play or the end of the roll or whatever it was, I don't see how the order matters. Especially if you're just playing by yourself. If you got to flip 3 cards or roll 3 sets of dice, as long as you're consistent, you should be fine. But technically, the guy was right. I was playing it wrong according to the instructions. Was it a game-breaking wrong? No, it wasn't a game-breaking wrong, but it felt more natural for me to do this way
And it goes back to no one plays any cards and dice game the same way as anybody else, unless you're in a tournament and play by tournament rules, and that's a whole other story. But the way that I would play Stratomatic on a cards and dice is going to be different from the way that you play Stratomatic. And for APA, I might use mods and you may not use mods, or vice versa. And so it's hard for those of us who just play the game to show it off, because I just talked about in what we were playing. We all mod cards and dice games to fit how we think that they should be played. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with the base directions of any game, but again, trying to figure out how do we make this immersive for our needs.
And sometimes I'm guilty of doing that without realizing, because even with the shootout hockey game, probably one of my favorites.
Yeah,
is what's supposed to happen is that if you're down to the 17th or 18th minute of the period and you roll for the time check, and the time check goes beyond the 20 minutes, that's it. The period ends. I play one final roll.
Right.
I always do. Every game I played, every period I play, is that if the time
you want to give that one team that one.
Yeah, at the end of each period, that's the exciting time of the game for me. Is the end of the period. You can score a goal at 19:58 of the second or the third period. That's exciting for me. So I don't let the time run out on the timer. If I bring it right down to 0-0-0 and I have the one last play, and that has brought a lot of joy and excitement for me in the shootout hockey. I've had so many games that have come down to that last roll, and it was exciting to see if they get that extra scoring chance or not, or what happened. So that's just how I play it, and for me, I'm consistent with that. Is it correct by the rules? No, it's not, and some people have called me out on that, but I was like, for me, that's fun, and that's one of my mods in there. So when you talk about modding, sometimes you make it fun for you, and it felt more natural. Just like the other game that I was playing completely wrong on certain aspects of the game, it didn't feel natural playing it the way they wanted me to. I didn't feel like I should know if the pass was complete before I knew who it was thrown to. I want to see who it's being thrown to and then see if he catches it.
Right.
So for me, I did it backwards. Was it wrong? Well, by the rules it was, but did it wreck the game? No, by no means did it wreck the game. So, and there was one other game that I think I rolled the dice and you were supposed to leave the dice there, and I rolled them again. I just like rolling dice. So I was like, it did no harm. I rolled it again and just to see what it was, Now, I know the Hockey Blast game, it's important to leave that dice roll down, okay, because that affects the game, okay? But this other game, I don't think it really did so much. It just was like to save you from rolling again if you didn't want to. But
when I played the demo for PC, for Replay Baseball, which I have but haven't installed on this new computer. Nothing against the game. It's I've got 18,000 other baseball games on the computer. My baseball games can play by themselves, okay? I had never played the game before. I'd read about it, but because it's a card and dice game with lots of different dice rolls, it was something that I was never going to pick up and play on my own. So when I tried the computer version, Richard Hanna game, by the way, this says, for those of you who know his programming, this makes sense. There was a lot of documentation with it. And so what I did was I sat and read the charts before I played. So I knew what was on those. So I had a basic idea of what was on the charts. I wasn't quite sure how the cards were, I don't want to say constructed, but a different column and a different vertical column and a different thing or what have you. And so that's how the game was played. I kind of taught myself that way. There were no videos really to explain it all, but because they had put so much documentation, especially the charts and how to read the cards and the Delphi board, I didn't feel completely behind the eight ball going into a card and dice PC port where someone who might buy Strat for the first time, I go, what the hell is this? That sort of thing. And I just really felt that it took me a handful of the games to understand it all and to understand the complexity of it all. Because you're looking at something, read result 77. What? There's no way that you can get 77 different results in this column. Well, but that's the way it is. And so I understood the game, liked the game, and felt more of a flow with it because Pete Ventura and Richard Hanna made sure that we had all the tools at our access when, in front of us when we went to play the game for the first time.
Yeah. And you brought up some, so aside from the instructions, okay, and then playing with somebody, and then obviously the YouTube now, one other way is just asking people, because there was a night that, we were sitting here chatting, and I think I was playing the Strat BC hockey game, and Bobby Orr kept turning over the puck, and I was just like, this is not making any sense, and this and that, and so I talked to you about it, and you kind of explained, and this was when I first was playing this, okay, and I really didn't know anything about some of these games, and you were like, don't think of it as it's a play-by-play situation where Orr turned it over. It's that Orr had the puck, and at some point over the next 40 seconds, the other team got the puck, and so talking to you about that made all kinds of sense. And now I could look at the game differently, because I was thinking, Orr keeps giving it to this guy. What's going on? Well, maybe he didn't. Maybe he passed it to Esposito and it hit a skate and it got poke checked by somebody, and now the other team has it. So when you explain, talk to people who have played the game. And so when I talked to you about that, you explained that, and boy, it just made all the sense in the world. And now the game made sense to me, whereas I was fighting that for a while.
Right.
I was like, this can't be right. His card is wrong, and why is he doing this? And then when you said, nope, this is kind of how it goes, and don't take it so literally, is kind of what you said, is that this is about a 40-second part of the game, that 100 things might have happened between that. So Orr didn't turn it over, but that's what he
might have.
He might have, but but during the course of action, the other team now has the puck, and that made sense. And so then, in your own mind, you could picture what happened during that 40 seconds. So talking to people that have played it is another good way to do it.
Absolutely.
And I guess the other way to do it is to post something on the social media, on Facebook groups.
You did that this week.
I did that a few times on Delphi. I've been there, and I've gotten some fantastic suggestions. Now, you don't always get the same advice or the same clarifications, because when I was learning Strat Baseball, even a few weeks ago, I was playing my series, I saw like the single with 2 asterisks and a double with 2 asterisks, and I say to myself, that's 2 bases. A double with 2 asterisks is kind of redundant, isn't it? Because if you double, you're going to get 2 bases. I mean, minimum. I mean, why would they need to put that in there? Why would they tell me to take 2 bases when you're getting 2 bases anyway? And so I asked that on one of the Strat forums, and most people get back to me. There was one guy that had said something different, but most everybody else said 2 stars means 2 bases only. Okay, and 1 star is 1 base only. So you can't try.
So that runner on first can't score on the double.
Yes. Yep, that's what it was. So it just said, no, whatever happened, they can't score. So I thought it was a bonus, and I was like, what the heck is that? But no. So the idea was that it held you at third base no matter what. So I asked, and it got clarified. And also there's, on the shootout forum on Delphi, a couple of people ask questions and chime in. And one question was, what do you do on a power play late in the game and then you pull the goalie, because it's almost like a double power play? And there was a lot of people that had some really good ideas and what to do with that. And I started using one of those during this current project. And I was like, I like this idea, whereas you do 2 different things, one for the power play, one for the goalie out, and it made it exciting at the end. It really did. And so that's the other way is is going to the different places on social media and asking some questions and seeing if you can get a response there. And, you might get a whole bunch of different responses because, again, people play it differently. But you might have a pretty good idea, or you might say, look, there's 5 different people gave me 5 different ways. Which way would I like? Which way makes more sense for me? Which is more fun for me?
Absolutely. Now, as we start to slow down on this, I really would implore game designers who might be watching or listening to this to either A, do your own video on how to play your game. You want people to buy it, and especially if it's a new game, we want to hear from you, because there might be a rule and Dave might interpret it one way, I might interpret it another way, a third person might interpret it a third way. None of us may be completely wrong, but we're not going to be completely right. And so if someone, I picked up hockey doodles, and this is how I play it. And Dave might go to me and say, no, you're supposed to kind of like the double thing that you just talked about. No, it's not. You don't get a bonus on that. In fact, it's the opposite. Oops, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And the other thing is to make sure that that someone reads through your instruction manuals.
That has nothing to do with the game. That knows nothing about the game.
Nothing about the game. Your best, someone that is really good at English, your wife maybe. Oh, Christ, you're talking about this game again. Here, read it. Make sure that someone that may not even like the sport could understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And it's not trying to make it dummy proof, but again,
if you know the game, it's hard to explain it in a way to somebody that doesn't. There was a game I played. It wasn't a sports game. It was some other dice game. And this guy's like, hey, anybody want to try out my new game? I'm looking for feedback. And so I printed it out. It was just a piece of paper and some instructions. And I got all the dice laid out and exactly as the instructions said. And I had no idea what to do. I had no idea if I rolled the dice, what I was supposed to do, how, and I wrote him back. I said, I'm not being a jerk, but I says, I printed it out, I set it up, I rolled the first set of dice, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. I read the instructions 3 times. Not once does it say, if I roll a 5 and a 6, it's this. If it's a 1 and a 4, it's this. And this was a non-sports game, by the way. This was just like I think it was a pyramid game or something like that of Egypt or something. And I was going to play the game, and I was even going to do a video for the guy, help him out. I couldn't figure it out. And I said, I don't know what to tell you. I says, I have no idea what to do. I mean, he's like, oh, well, you're supposed to stack the pyramids up. How? What does this dice roll mean? What can I do with this dice roll? And he says, well, okay, I'll have to rewrite the instructions. I never heard back from him, So I don't know if he got mad at me. Maybe he did, but he thought he had this great thing, and his friends told him how great it was. But as someone who's never played it, I said, what do I do? It's just so one other thing you can do as far as learning a game, and this kind of goes back on the developers, is to either on your website or in the instructions have some sample play. That is just as important as having good instructions. Is give a couple of sample plays. Okay, here's this. You roll a 5. Let's look at the chart. The chart says this. That means this happens, and here's that. And here's another example. Here's example B is you flip this card, and this happens here, and give you a little bit of idea on what, at least get you started. Sometimes just getting you out of the starting gate is a good enough. Okay, so okay, that makes sense. I get it now. This does this and this does that. So in regular season basketball does that. Is right on their website is they have sample play. And they said, okay, in this example, we roll a 34, and this is 7 points for this team, and column 34 says this, and here's who gets the points and the rebounds and the assists. And it's spelled out beautifully. And then they do another roll, I think. So you're like, okay, I get it now.
Right.
And that was fantastic. So having a sample play, a sample roll, a sample flip of the card, get people going into it. And then maybe if you want to throw in, if there's like something really crazy that happens, okay, in case this happens, here's this scenario. We can do that too. But sample gameplay that people can follow along, because I do that. I have the sample gameplay in my hand, and I follow the charts and the cards in the dice roll while I'm reading the sample play. So it's almost like I'm playing it, and then it gets you in the flow of where to look, too. Where to look.
The other thing is, I knew she was in here. The other thing is that developers, I'm not sure, understand that they don't anticipate every situation that can come up. You talked about that with the pyramid example. And so, especially in a new game, we talked about earlier that, you know how to handle certain situations, but your game players or your beta testers, or even when it hits the market, your customers are going to find situations that you may or may not have anticipated. And it's important to be able to explain them away, because, again, you don't want me playing one way and you playing another and a third friend doing that.
And there's also a frustration factor, too, that if you get to something that's like, what do I do now?
Exactly.
It's just, I had that happen in a few games, and where it's like, okay, which team has the momentum, or which team has this, or which team has the bonus, or whatever it is, because they both should have it, and so there's a few things I got tripped up on, and sometimes you get on that, like I say, I call it the rabbit hole, where it's like this happens, well, now you get this happen, and then you get this happen, and then so you can't anticipate everything. I don't think you can anticipate probably 99% of it.
Yes,
but yeah,
absolutely.
So you try to explain as much as you can, and a lot of times what I've seen happen too is a game developer to say, look, anything that just is out of the ordinary, just have a face-off, or just have a jump ball, or just something,
right.
or have it be a ball and repitched at a batter or something like that, or something. So, so there's ways around some of the crazy stuff there. But yeah, no, you're right. It is so many crazy things can happen in a game, and if that's how your game is designed to be that deep, then you really need to explain as much of that as you can.
Yeah.
So again, we're not playing it differently, and we're not getting frustrated because it didn't explain it well enough. So, but yeah, I think that going to these so we're getting back to my example of gameplay example, that is my favorite thing.
And that's a very good one to have. It spells it quite clearly out. You know what to look forward to.
Yep. So if just to kind of recap, so we talked about how we learn to play games, and so we want to know how you learn to play games. The obvious ones is, reading the instructions. Okay, that's the obvious one. You got the YouTube with some of the videos. A little more difficult with the cards and dice. And let me say, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here that anybody that goes and dumps on people that are doing the cards and dice game, either reviews or replays or first looks or whatever, it's not easy. And if you're going to go on there and just dump all over somebody and give them crap about what a terrible video and this was awful, then give it a try. And I'm very defensive about this because, I'm part of a community that does this, and I know how hard it is. And I know you get done a 35 or 40-minute video and you go back and say, wow, I made 3 mistakes in this. Do I go and do it all again? Or do I let it ride and just make a note about it, knowing people are going to give me crap about it? Because they expect perfection, and it's not. So before you go and you ream somebody better out, try it yourself. And if you can do a better job, do it, because we'd love to have a perfect video out there of every game. We would. I would like it. Ron would like it, and the whole bit. So just a little bit of a tangent there is that, if you're going to go on and just bust people's chops because they made a mistake or said something wrong or whatever, then you need to give it a try and see how easy or how difficult it is. That's all I'm going to say about that. So there's the YouTube way. There's, talking to people that have played the game, getting advice that way. The Delphi, sometimes that can be very helpful. The Facebook groups can be very helpful, although you're going to get your wise guys. Just plan on it. Some groups are better than others. Some groups I get no harassment at all, and others I get a lot of harassment. Just how it is. So that's a tough route to go, but sometimes you can get some help, and then you're going to get some different answers. Like I say, the baseball one, I get 5 or 6 guys telling me this way and one guy telling me another way, and they all felt that they were right, and there was no argument. We didn't go back and forth, but it was just like, well, 5 guys said this and one guy said that. I'm going to go with the 5.
Yeah,
I'm going to take it that's the way it is. And if this other guy plays it that way, no big deal to me. I just was asking for some clarification to see what I wanted to do with it. So there's all kinds of different ways, but the best way is just to have some good instructions in the game. Yes. With laying out the different examples and laying out some sample gameplay, and that's always a winner. It really is. Just spell it out, and just treat us all like dummies when you're doing a game. Spell it out. If you want me to do a defensive check, make sure there's a defensive something on the card that says defense. That's all I ask. If it's an outfield check, make sure I know where the outfield is.
Don't make me think.
Yeah, don't say, well, the intimidation is the defense. Well, how am I supposed to know? Then put intimidation in the directions. Don't call it defense, but on the card call it something different. And I've seen that happen a few times where it's like, oh, man, how am I supposed to figure this out now without someone sitting down and explaining it to me? Which it shouldn't. Right. It shouldn't have to be like that. Something is not right if it's laid out like that. So, yeah, many different ways you can learn a game, and I'm learning all of them this week. It really was. So between the issues I had with the Hockey Blast and the issues I had, and I shouldn't say issues, I just say, things that come up during Hockey Blast, things that come up with Apple Hockey, things that come up with Strat Baseball, all I tried to read, and sometimes I'm guilty of over-reading the instructions, and I read it and I read too much into it. When if I just take it at face value, it does make sense, but sometimes I just it doesn't click. And that's when I ask, okay, am I not reading this or am I just not clicking? What is the deal here, guys? And some guys will spell it out. And maybe just somebody writing it a little different is enough to make that click. And you're like, oh, why didn't they write it this way? Because that makes more sense, you know? At least more sense to me, I should say. You know, then when I go back and read it, it's like, oh, now I see what they were getting at, but because they wrote it this way, it just...
But everybody has different levels of understanding and different levels of patience.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do kind of have to, you know, they should be written as simple as possible because you don't want someone to be spending $50 on something for the first time and chuck it in a closet because they couldn't make heads or tails.
And then tell everybody the game sucks.
Right, exactly.
You know, you don't want that. You don't want someone to say your game sucks because they couldn't figure it out. So, yeah. So, and you know, and if you have a complex game, maybe spell that out. Say, look, this is not just a pick up and play type of game. This is a deep game. It's a great game, but you know, it's going to take some time and it's a big learning curve. And I've had some people tell me that. Is I've talked about a game, they're like, the game is great, but it's a big learning curve. And it's not just sports games either. This is you know, other games that I played too. And they're like, oh, you want to play like the Star Wars Outer Rim game I was looking at. It's a big board game. And I'm a Star Wars guy. I'd like to play it. And they're like, the learning curve is ridiculous. It's an awesome game, but don't expect to sit down and pick it up in a night. And they're honest about it. I'm like, okay, at least I know if I want to play that game, I need to set my patience level to be very high and give myself a lot of time because it's not going to be a pick up and play, you know. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so there's that. So yeah, so we'd like to know from you. What's the best way that you have learned a game? I probably imagine it's something that we talked about, but if it's something different, let us know too. Maybe there's other way. Obviously, you can contact the developer of the game, sending an email, a contact and support. You know, that helps too. We didn't talk about that at all yet, but that could be. I like to do that as a last resort.
Yeah, you don't want to bother them unless you absolutely have
That's
to.
the thing is you don't want to think that, you know, because then if you really need something from them, they go, here's this guy again with another rules question, you know? Yeah. So you don't want to be that guy. You want to just, if you got something.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah. So I guess you could contact the developer. I like to do that as a last resort in case I'm really stuck and no one has an answer, or maybe the group wants a clarification on something like that. So that's how that goes. But anyway, so should we wrap things up?
If you do contact the developer, make sure you actually bought the game.
Oh,
there can't be anything worse for a developer than, I picked this up and it's
at a flea market. Yeah, it's like
it's a pirated game. Like, great. Go ahead. How do you get a hold of us?
All right, let me get the music. Here we go. All right, ways to get a hold of us. DigitalToDice.com is the website. That's where we put all of our podcasts. Over on Facebook.com/group/DigitalToDice. That's where you can find us on Facebook in that growing group. And that's a good place to ask for directions, too, on how to play a game, because a lot of people have helped me out there, and I think I've helped other people out as well, and we can share files and stuff in the whole bit as far as it goes. 978-751-DICE. 978-751-3423 is a text line. Anything else?
The Facebook group. I think that's about it.
Yeah, Facebook group, the website, text line. That's it. All right, Ron, thanks for joining me.
As always.
Talk to everybody later. Bye-bye.